Someone picked me up the other day because I was confusing the Budapest Memorandum with the Belgrade agreement, which is something quite different. And sometimes when you're tired, you see the letter B, and all manner of things come into your head. The Budapest Memorandum was signed in 1994, and it became the central focus of Ukraine's security. It was the internationally agreed and monitored point at which Ukraine gave over its nuclear weapons to Russia in return for Russia's security and protection, and it was overseen by the UK, the US, Kazakhstan, and Belarus, and it involved understandings that Belarus wouldn't acquire more nuclear weapons and so on. So it's been completely upended as a concept, and it's 30 years old. And Zelensky has pointed out that this is one of the aspects of the failed international security assurances, because it doesn't really work. The agreement in which Ukraine relinquished the world's third largest nuclear arsenal in exchange for guarantees of territorial integrity and sovereignty from Russia, the US and the UK is now described by Kyiv as a monument to short-sightedness. And Zelensky is quite right. What are we supposed to do when Russia advances into Ukraine and defies the Budapest Memorandum? Somebody in the comment section, I think yesterday or the day before, said, well, all we're expected to do is present a case to the United Nations. Protest. It's not enough. 30 years on, it's clear that the memorandum offered neither enforceable guarantees nor effective deterrence. And Ukraine's decision to denuclearize under that Budapest Memorandum was based on assurances from major powers that the borders would be respected. And the annexation of Crimea in 2014, the ongoing invasion in 2022, starkly revealed the memorandum's shortcomings. And the absence of any binding enforcement mechanisms left Ukraine vulnerable to aggression, particularly from Russia, a signatory that flagrantly violated that agreement with respect to Ukraine and with respect to Belarus. We mustn't forget the Belarus rearmament, the nuclear weapons wheeled into Belarus. President Zelensky and Ukraine's leadership argue that full NATO membership is the only viable security guarantee. And the call comes in the middle of fears of a forced negotiation under potential Trump plans, which may weaken US support. And Ukraine views NATO not only as a bulwark against further aggression, but also as a deterrent to similar future violations of international norms by Putin or by Putin's cronies, if Putin is genuinely in the fridge and genuinely dead. It doesn't really matter. The likelihood is, whatever negotiation is wrought to end this war, Putin will ultimately be blamed for this, and it is one way of drawing a line under it. This is Putin's war, Putin's folly, Putin's dead. Let's have a great funeral and praise Putin, and then park that episode of Russian history. The mistakes of the Budapest Memorandum must not be repeated. And the Minsk agreements, which followed Crimea's annexation, are also viewed as ineffective compromises that emboldened Russia's aggression. And the people who are constantly referencing the Minsk agreements are being very selective in their historical documentation, because the Budapest Memorandum precedes those and is more important. Zelensky made it quite clear that he wanted to revise and repeal the Minsk agreements. The memorandum's failure underlines the failure in confidence in nuclear disarmament agreements worldwide, and Kyiv warns that the erosion of trust in such guarantees could prompt nations to reconsider disarmament, as security assurances seem unreliable when they're tested. This could accelerate nuclear proliferation in unstable regions. So it is important. It's not simply words that can be dismissed. As Ukraine resists Russian advances, it also faces renewed attacks on its critical infrastructure, and Russia's winter strategy of targeting energy systems further exacerbates the humanitarian crisis. Ukraine's successes, such as repelling Russian forces at the Oskil River, underscore its resilience, but they highlight the war's protracted and devastating toll. And despite Ukraine's insistence, NATO seems reluctant to fast-track Ukraine's membership, and the alliance fears that immediate accession could provoke an even greater escalation with Russia, which views strengthening Ukraine's position through military support further endangers the security of the region. The Ukrainian position is that this would lever greater power in future negotiations. I'm not sure it would. The impending possibility of Donald Trump's return to the White House casts uncertainty over US policy, and Trump's vague promises of a quick resolution have raised alarms in Kyiv, which fears being coerced into a settlement that leaves its territory under Russian control. Kyiv insists that any negotiation must occur from a position of strength, with robust international backing and NATO membership as an ultimate goal. But when that occurs, that's a debatable point. Zelensky would want it to occur sooner rather than later. The Budapest Memorandum exemplifies the dangers of unenforceable international agreements, and Ukraine's demand for NATO membership reflects both its disillusion with past assurances and its need for concrete security guarantees in a volatile global landscape with a menace threatening domination, like some sort of Baba Yaga walking around in his fridge. And this memorandum's failure is a cautionary tale, underscoring the necessity of credible, enforceable commitments in global diplomacy. There needs to be a change, and that gap in the system is what energizes Zelensky, and it's that gap in the system is what gave Putin the opportunities of walking into Crimea and of trying to walk into Kyiv, because be in no doubt that that incredibly long convoy of tanks that simply ran out of petrol was aiming for Kyiv and was defeated by stupidity.